Hi, everybody. My name is Noor Ghamfar, and I am the Director of Campus Engagement for the MIT Arab Alumni Association. And I'm working together with Noor Malouf here to put together the College Admission Arab Mentorship Program presentation for you all. Noor, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Noor. I am actually a SABIS graduate myself. So it's great to be doing this presentation for all of you. I am currently the publicity chair of the Arab Student Organization at MIT.
And we also, sorry, and I was going to say, we also have Jasmine, who is the president of the Arab Student Organization. Do you want to say hi, Jasmine?
Hey everyone, glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this presentation.
Great, so we can go ahead and get started, and the presentation is going to be in English. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat as we move on, and we're going to answer all the questions at the very end. But we can also speak in Arabic. If you have anything you'd like to ask in Arabic, it's fully fine as well. So we can go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Mr.
good afternoon.
Sorry, I'm a bit late. I had an issue here with connection. but now I'm with you. I just wanted to thank you, everyone, for organizing the session. Noor especially, she was the contact person with us here. She's an alumni from ISC Kura and SABIS in Lebanon. Thank you so much, Noor. Much appreciated. And to my colleagues and all students, please enjoy the presentation. And thank you all for attending.
Great, thank you so much. So for our agenda, this is what we're going to be talking about. Why choose to study abroad, how to prepare for and apply to schools in the US, how to pay for schools in the US, the visa logistics, a little bit about student life, and then if you'd like to be involved with CAAMP further, what the next steps are, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. And Noor and Jasmine and myself are going to be speaking throughout the presentation. So we just ask that you hold all questions till the end, or you type them in the chat so you don't forget about them. A little bit of background about me. I graduated from MIT with a master's in city planning in 2019. And before that, I actually went to undergrad at McGill University in Canada. So I experienced the grad life there, but luckily Noor and Jasmine are both undergrads. And so they'll be able to tell you a lot more about getting into undergrad at MIT. So first, why apply to schools outside of the Arab world? I think that this is a very important question in understanding why you essentially want to leave. And there are three, I think, really essential points. The first is really more stability. Your college education and your university years are some of the most important in your life. And obviously, I don't have to tell everyone living in Lebanon, it's a very, very volatile time in the region, as it almost always is. And so you're always worried about the stability. Are you able to continue your education? You don't really know what's going to be happening. And in other parts of the world, really, if you leave, it's a lot more stable. Obviously, COVID has shown us that, nowhere is really immune to a lack of stability, but it's safe to say that some areas are more stable than others. And so you can almost be more assured that your education will be able to be continued. The next part is a better education. It's not to say that our region doesn't offer really, really great education, but when we look at overall holistically, how students are taught and what they're taught and the subjects that they're offered, education outside of the Arab world tends to be superior. And so for that reason alone, if you're interested in, pursuing a more rigorous academic degree, studying outside of the Arab world is a great option. And then finally, personal growth. So myself, I am Syrian. I was raised in Kuwait my whole life, and then I went to Canada for undergrad. And so just the journey of, being removed and plucked out of a society that you're used to your whole life and placed in another one, your own personal growth that you experienced during that time cannot be measured. I also think it's a lot more safer to stay in one place. And it's not that you won't grow, it's just a different type of growth. And I encourage people that if you have the financial means and the ability to study or to leave during very formative college years, to take it, because the growth is really unparalleled. So why apply specifically to schools in the United States? There are really great schools everywhere, whether it's in Europe or Australia or even China. So why in the US? Really, the first reason I think for me is academic excellence. Schools in the US, the subjects that are offered, just the variety, the way that they teach students, how it's very hands-on and you're not just looking at grades, but you're looking at experiences and volunteering and, all the whole package put together. I really think that the academic excellence of schools in the US is unparalleled, and a lot of the rankings reflect that. Another option is, or another reason is the cultural diversity. You're going to be meeting people, not just in school, but in the cities that you live in from everywhere. And so when you have this melting pot and this mosaic of people, it's really wonderful because you get to learn so much and, you know, really be exposed to things that you never thought you would be. And then finally, the value of a US degree across the world is constantly increasing. And so, you know, it is quite expensive, especially if you don't have any financial aid or scholarships to cover it. But the value of a US degree generally is looked on quite favorably from both a US perspective and a non-US perspective. So, you know, you already want to apply to school in the US. What's next for you in this progression? The first that I recommend is getting an idea about what you want to study. You know, from engineering to biology to political science, there's a lot of different, you know, possibilities, but understanding kind of what you're interested in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a major, but if you like science versus if you like English literature, that's going to help you narrow down what schools that you want to be interested in. Understanding where you want to live. I think that after knowing what you want to study, this is the second largest decision. The city that you will be living in for the next 4 years will really affect your experience. And especially in the US, there's a huge like urban to rural number of places. So you can be living in a place like New York City, or you could be living in a place like Indiana, or somewhere even more rural. And that's really going to affect, you know, how you interact with your environment, what the school atmosphere is like. And so if you like to be living in urban centers, you know, I would stress that maybe applying to somewhere that's a lot more rural, or that's just a university town, might not be for you. And then in the end, just be realistic about getting into the schools that you want to apply to. You know, not everyone can or really should get into MIT. If your interests don't lie, you know, if your interests are not in science or engineering or, you know, something super specific, MIT might not be for you, and that's okay. There are a ton of amazing other schools that you can get into. And I can look back at this now, 10 years after I applied to school, and tell you that, you know, the name of the school that you go to isn't as important as the education and experiences you get within it. I think for us in the Arab world, when we're applying to schools in the West, the name means a lot to us. And, you know, everybody wants to go to MIT and everybody wants to go to Harvard. And, you know, if people haven't heard of the school, you're not that interested in, but trust me, like college is in and of itself, especially if you are abroad, is a wonderful experience. And you need to look at the school that fits best with you, more than like if the name has a brand recognition or not. And Noor and Jasmine, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Cool. So
No, covered it.
Great. So the next thing would be for me is to create a list of schools that meet your needs regarding whether subject, location, admission probability. And you can always, I recommend applying to 8 to 10 schools. You can always apply to more, you can always apply to less, but generally you have a couple of reach schools that, you know, you feel like you might not get in, but it's always good to apply. A couple of schools that are safety schools where, you know, you're almost guaranteed to get in, and then a couple of schools that you kind of hit the target where you're most likely going to get in, but you're not sure. It just depends on a host of other things. And then finally, you know, I would really stress getting advice about the type of school that you want to get into. This is going to be, I think, the first really, truly big decision that you make as adults. And so, you know, talking to your friends and family about the schools that you're interested in, looking at the school's websites, those are really the true source of information. And especially now with COVID, a lot of schools are having virtual information sessions. And so you're going to be able to get a flavor of the school, even if you can't go to campus or you're not able to travel to see it. And so really just trying to understand, am I making the right decision? Is this a good fit for me? And of course, I'm sure that your own school has counselors and teachers that also know you well, and you can ask them, you know, I'm interested in applying to so-and-so school. What do you think? Can you see me there? What's your perspective? And always get advice from, you know, people that you trust. Okay, so now that you're ready to apply, you have your list of schools, you know what you're going to do. There are a lot of components on the applications that are similar across a number of schools, which include academics. It includes extracurricular activities, your personal essay, your interview, and recommendation letters. So for academics, you know, at MIT, test scores really are not the only factor. They have a policy of we admit people and not numbers. So just because, let's say you get a full score on your SAT and you have an over a 4.0, that doesn't mean that you're going to get into MIT. At the same time, if you don't have a 4.0 and you didn't do so well on your SAT, that also doesn't mean that you're not going to get into MIT. It's really part of a package, but MIT rigorously academically is very challenging. And so your grades are a good indication of whether you're going to do well there or not. And so they're looking at your GPA. There are some necessary exams, and then some additional exams, whether your school has AP or IB or A levels that factor into this. However, I do want to let you know that for 2020, the admission year this year, MIT had the policy of being test optional. So if you were unable to safely take the SAT or a TOEFL or anything like that, you didn't have to, although they did recommend that students take it if they could, but they don't want for someone to risk their life or their family's life trying to take a test. And it looks like that's the way it's going to be for next year as well. However, we're not sure yet. I spoke with the MIT admissions. They said we're still not sure, but it's looking like it's going to be test optional for the next year as well. And so English for non-natives, this was a requirement before COVID, and I think it might continue to be after COVID. This is the only one where MIT requires a minimum score to get in. The SAT, what's the other alternative to ACT? There are no minimum requirements, but for the English one, there are. And so you can do the TOEFL, the IELTS. They even have a Duolingo English test that you can take at home now. And so if you hit this, which I think if you're being educated in English, you should easily hit this. For both times, for undergrad and grad, and I had to take this, and I didn't study for either of them. And I was well above the recommended 100 score when I took the TOEFL. So if you're already reading and writing and speaking in English, I don't think you have to worry about this. For extracurriculars, now these are things usually outside of your academic curriculum, and it gives colleges a better sense of, you know, who you are, what you're passionate about, and, you know, demonstrate skills that you have, whether it's leadership or commitment, team building, and, you know, it just shows that you're passionate about something. And I do want to stress that just because you can do every single extracurricular offered in your school does not mean that you have to. A lot of the time, colleges can see right through you just adding an extracurricular to your CV because you think it looks good when you apply. Truly be particular about the type of activities that you invest your time in, because your time is worth a lot. You know, you could be doing a lot with it. And just you doing something just because it ticks a box for colleges is not a smart strategy for me. And so really pursue a passion, something that you really enjoy. And that can be things like high school sports or music, whether it's university summer programs or community-wide events. You can be like a founder or leader of a group inside or outside your school. And so I remember like being really into debate and Model United Nations when I was in school and being into sports. But I wasn't into student council. I didn't, you know, so you don't have to do everything. Just pick a couple of things that you really invested in, that you care about, and that you, or maybe skills that you want to grow as well. So I think that just looking at those, Noor and Jasmine, I don't know if you guys did any extracurriculars, if you want to talk about that.
For me, I would say dance was my biggest extracurricular. And I remember even writing an essay about that. So extracurriculars give you something to talk about as well, and they just add more sides to you, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I also did a sport. I swam. So, and plus there are other things you can do like volunteering and joining different clubs. And I'm not sure what your schools offer, but my school had clubs that you can do, like did model UN. So.
And okay, so now we come to the personal essay, which for me, as someone who is not part of the admission committee, I think that this is the most important part of your application, because it's the opportunity to let your voice shine and tell the university who you are and why you chose this university. It's more geared towards your personal life. It kind of helps convey, your self-motivation, your sense of direction, and really why this particular college fits in with your goals. I think a lot of colleges can also see right through if you're copying and pasting the same essay for each of them. So trying to target specifically, let's say if you want to go to a school like MIT or Harvard or Boston University because you want to be in Massachusetts, you want to be on the East Coast in Boston, you can target that, right? You can explain that. If you are interested in a particular professor, that professor has, you look at their work and they've inspired you, or a particular startup that spun out of that school, talk about that. I think for a lot of schools, they want to see, think about it from this perspective. If I am MIT or I am Harvard or I'm Yale, you have thousands of people applying every year to get in. And so what sets you apart? Why does this person particularly care about this university to come to me? And so that's what you kind of need to tell them and show them. And so here's just a couple of sample essay questions. So it can range from something super generic, like, complete a one-page personal statement and submit it, which is from James Madison University, all the way to, tell us about a person who influenced you in a significant way. And I know that when I was applying, there was a common application process where you could write one really big essay and have it be the same across a number of universities, and then maybe do a couple of supplemental smaller questions for each university. And specifically for MIT, these were the questions some of the questions that were asked during the 21-22 admission period. So, describe the world you come from. How has it shaped your dreams and aspirations? And they're just asking for 250 words or less. So if you want to be specific, brief, and very clear about, your message. Let's say, pick what field of study at MIT appeals to you and why. You lead a busy life full of activities, and tell us something that you do just because you love to do it. Noor and Jasmine, I don't know when you guys applied, what that experience was like and kind of what you wrote about.
For me, I kind of enjoyed having smaller and more numerous essays because I felt like I could talk about more aspects of my life. And so I wrote about something different for each essay, obviously. And I felt like that served to kind of show all the sides of me. And it doesn't have to be like, don't try to imagine someone that the university would want you to be, because the truth is no one knows what they want. So really just I know they say it a lot, but just be yourself, because that's the person you're going to know how to portray best.
Yeah, I agree with Noor too. It's all about, you said it perfectly, being yourself. But I also want to add, for certain schools, there's like, for example, the Ivies, there's the Common App. So that's the one where you have to write one essay. Like there's a bunch of prompts, like maybe 5 prompts, and you write one essay answering, and you send it to a bunch of colleges that accept it. MIT doesn't work with the Common App. They have their own essay questions, as you can see.
So for an interview, for international students, generally, it's less likely to happen, but it's still possible and usually a good sign. And these things can really happen anywhere, whether it's a local coffee shop or over Zoom or, you know, in the alum's office. And it's just an informal conversation that, you know, shouldn't last more than an hour. And you can, you know, talk about things that aren't conveyed in the application. And usually why universities go for interviews is because they want to find out more about the student that they feel like, okay, this person on paper seems like they're a good fit, but we need more information to really tell in person, you know, what they're like, how they talk. And so it's a chance for you to just really be yourself and talk to someone. Like Noor was saying with the essay, don't pretend to be someone that you're not. Don't pretend to, you know, I don't know, like show up in a suit for the interview if you don't usually wear suits, right? The alum's job is really just to gauge whether you seem, you know, well-spoken, well-mannered, you know, a good fit for the university. And it's nothing that it's not like one thing that they're looking for, right? It's just, you know, can I have a conversation with this person? What are their aspirations? Are they applying to the school because they really care about something related to the school? And so just be yourself. Usually if you get into the interview point, it's a good sign. But I know Noor was not interviewed. And so, she, you know, and she got in. So it doesn't mean that because you didn't get an interview, you're not going to get in, or because you did, you are getting in, right? It's always contextual. Nothing really in the US application process will give you a strong indication of you getting in or not getting in. It's just, you know, jumping through a series of hurdles until you get to the final letter. So that was my experience. Recommendation letters. So, you know, schools will generally ask for 2 to 3. Usually they ask for 2 academic and then 1 not. That's what they did for grad school, but for undergrad, I'm not sure if they have requirements. I think that it's a good strategy not to get it from the same type of source. So, you know, if you go for a really academic, you know, let's say what your chemistry teacher versus let's say your football coach or your basketball coach, I think showing the different facets of your personality is a really good thing. And, you know, also to ask someone who knows you well, you know, going up to, let's say, the principal of the school, because it's the principal, and asking them to write you a recommendation letter. If the guy or the woman does not know you, I don't think that's a good thing, because it won't be personal. It won't really show who you are. And so always stick to someone who knows you well or relatively well. I think just, you know, kind of looking at, I got my recommendation letter from my sports coach and from my English teacher. And I think I just needed 2. So those are the 2 people that I did. So I tried to balance. Okay, financial aid. And this is a big topic because I know that, you know, financially in Lebanon, the economic situation is not the best, as in a lot of the other Arab worlds. But I know specifically, it's very difficult to move money right now inside and outside of Lebanon. So financial aid could be really important in your ability to attend university. And so for 2019-2020, so before COVID, the academic year, tuition cost almost $75,000. And you can see from the pie chart here that most of it was tuition. Some went to housing, there are meals, personal expenses, books and supplies, and student life fee. So it's pretty expensive, you know, especially when you think that, you know, you're already traveling. That's not the cost of any tickets that you're going, or the setup cost of being in a new place. So there are some adjustments that were made for COVID. And so obviously there was no housing, tuition dropped, I think, by more than half. And you will also need to submit a certification of finances, which means kind of, I think it's a letter from the bank that says that, you know, this is how much you or your family, your guardians have in terms of finances and what they can afford. but all this will eventually depend on if you get in or not. So that's something to note as well, although MIT does not ask for certification of finances, although other schools do. So that's something to keep in mind. Currently, only 5 US universities offer need-blind admission and full need financial aid to all students, including international applicants. So let's break it down. Need-blind admission means that universities are first only looking at your application package, everything, but not your financial package, which means, I'm looking at, let's say, Noor's grades and her extracurricular, her recommendation letter, her personal essay, all those things that we talked about. And if she's a good fit, I'm going to accept her before knowing if she can afford to pay for the school or not. So that's the one part of it. But then they also offer full need financial aid, which means, let's say you can only afford to pay for 20%. These schools will cover the rest of the 80%. If you can only afford to pay 0, like you cannot afford to pay for school, they will cover 100%. These schools are Harvard, Princeton, MIT, Yale, and Amherst College. And, I do want to make it clear that because these 5 schools are the only schools that offer this for international students, you're going to have to think that you are going to be competing for a spot with every single international student from Brazil and China and India and Russia and everybody else applying to those schools. So it's extremely, extremely, extremely competitive. So that's something to note as well. But if you get in and you are worried about how you're going to pay for college, these schools will help cover as much as you need. Other schools will not, although some might. Like I know Columbia will cover a certain amount, but it won't be full need financial aid, So here are some options that you can look at for financial aid. There are some organizations that are going to help you cover at least some of the costs, but you're going to have to do a lot of the work. For a lot of the work of looking for these scholarships, applying to them, waiting. And so we have this list here that consists of, international organizations, US government departments, and even like some websites that kind of showcase what scholarships are available. We're gonna share a recording of this after, so I'm not gonna run through everything right now, but you can always take a look at this afterwards. And so for visa logistics, I'm gonna leave it, I think, to Noor to help answer this.
Yes, so you only have to worry about the visa after you get into a certain school. After you get in, you're going to look for the visa of category F. It's the student visa for the academic institutions. Now, the school, once you get in, if you're an international student, they will give you the I-20 form. You need this, and you also need to register in something called the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. Once you have these 2 things, then you can go to the embassy for a visa interview. Now, if you got into a school, I don't think you have to worry about getting the visa, because especially if you do have an acceptance, they shouldn't be too picky about it. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about student life at MIT, what life here is like. Here on the left is Tim the Beaver, MIT's mascot.
And for those of you who don't know, the reason our mascot is a beaver is because beavers are the engineers of the animal world, because they build dams. So, and he's called Tim the Beaver because that's MIT spelled backwards. Obviously, not a lot of originality.
So for housing and dining, there are 11 different residence halls you can choose from, or 11 different dorms. This one pictured here on the right it's called Masi. When I first read it, I read it as Masih because, I read it in Arabic. And it's actually where I am now. And they are very different. Like you have all sorts of options depending. So some of them have dining, some of them are cook for yourself communities. You can also help choose on, depending on where the dorm is located. Some of them they have different dorm cultures, we call them. And there's also, for example, a dorm for all boys, a dorm for all girls, and then the rest are mixed. And about the dining halls, so 5 of the dorms do have dining halls in them. And don't worry about whether food will be provided to you. For example, if you're vegetarian, vegan, lactose-free, gluten-free, they have options for everyone. They take every single allergy and things like that into thought. Now for athletics and recreation, MIT has varsity sports and club sports. And there is a lot. So I included here that they even have Quidditch as a sport, just to show you how many options there are. So even the sport that doesn't really exist, they do have it for, for all of the Harry Potter fans. And then there's also the Z Center, which is a gym. It's very good, and all students are offered free admission to the gym. You can go anytime. You just have to reserve. And there's also gym classes. I took Zumba last week, and it was very nice. There's also the PE aspect. In order to graduate from MIT, you need to have completed at least 8 PE classes. Now, each PE class only lasts half a semester, or a quarter as we call it, and many of them are very, very interesting classes. For example, you can get something called a pirate certificate, and you get that when you do 4 classes, which are archery, sailing, and you sail on the Charles River, and pistol, and fencing. So all the things a pirate does, basically. And then there's also a swim test, which most people take in their first or second year. And they just basically want to make sure you can swim. So you also have to pass that. Now for arts at MIT, I'm going to start with dance. Dance is actually a very big part of student life here. For example, whenever the weather is nice and you look outside on the grass, you will see at least one group of people dancing or practicing some dance. There's a lot of dance teams, and they hold a lot of workshops if you don't want to be part of a team. And the same goes for music. There's instruments and music rooms in every dorm, and there's also teams and a cappella groups and things like that. And also for visual arts, if you like drawing and painting, you can also definitely do that, and you will get a chance to exhibit your artwork. Now for academics, which is probably going to be the bulk of your energy at MIT. So you have more than 50 majors to choose from. Now you choose them at the end of your freshman year. I'm supposed to choose mine this month, and I'm still not sure of what I want to major in. So, and there's a lot of people like me. So if you're stressed about not knowing what you want to do, that's completely fine. And there's also more than 50 minors. And with these majors and minors, you have advisors to help you. My advisor has been advising at MIT for like 42, 43 years. So he knows his stuff. So he knows, he's seen every case basically. And then there's also GIRs. GIRs is General Institute Requirements. And these are classes that everyone needs to take in order to eventually graduate from MIT. They are introductory level classes. They are 1 biology class, 1 chemistry class, 2 math classes, and 2 physics classes. And there's also the HAS requirement. So even though most people know MIT as this very STEM focused school, you also have to take 8 HAS classes. Now, what's a HAS class? It stands for Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. Last semester I took history. This semester I'm taking French. Some of them are very interesting. For example, there's an intro to acting class. There's one class where you just train your voice on how to speak in some way. So many of them are very interesting, and they feel more like activities than actual classes. And then something very important I want to touch on about life at MIT is the collaboration. I don't think we are not, how do I say it? We are not only encouraged to collaborate, no, I said that wrong. We are not only allowed to collaborate, we are encouraged to collaborate. I don't think in the 2 semesters that I've been here, I think I haven't done one single assignment completely on my own. Everyone wants to help. The atmosphere is very collaborative. Even people I don't know, they will volunteer to help you with a certain problem or with a certain assignment. And I feel like that's very, very important. If you ask many people at MIT what their favorite part about it is, the most common answer you will get is the people. And that's very true because it's just, I don't know, I've heard, for example, from my friends at other universities that there's this sort of competition and students don't really help each other, but that's not the case here at all. People really love helping each other.
Great. And so, you know, how can we as CAAMP ambassadors help? We can answer your questions about any American colleges. We can guide you through the application process, look over your resumes, offer interview tips, and ongoing mentorship. And so if you're interested in getting further mentorship, what you're going to need to do is fill out the form using the following link, which is bit.ly/MIT-CAAMP. And so if you fill that out, we will get in touch by the end of April and see if we can set you up with a mentor to help you with the application process. And our goal here is really to increase the number of Arab students applying to US schools in general and applying to MIT specifically, and not just applying, but also getting in. We want to see more representation for Middle Easterns and North Africans in MIT and the US ecosystem. So that's what we're hoping for. And I really love this quote because it says that university has become a place that prepares you for the fights in the world. And that's really true. And, you know, after seeing the amazing things that MIT has to offer, I regret not applying there for undergrad. It's an incredible institution filled with a lot of great traditions. You are surrounded by the smartest people, but also some of the nicest as well. And so it's a really good place to be. So thanks, everyone. We're going to open it up to questions. And I see that Mahmoud has his hand raised. So if you want to unmute, if you want to turn on your video too, so we can see your face, that would be fine.
Thank you a lot for the presentation. I'd rather not turn on my camera if that's okay. Yeah, I just found out that you guys offer economics majors as well.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yeah,
okay, yeah, I'd like to know whether, I'd like to know whether I would get credit if I did A-levels in math, economics, and business if I apply for a major in economics.
So when you apply, it doesn't matter what your major is, like you'll still get credit for, if they accept credit for, actually, I don't even know, do they accept credit for A-levels?
I'm not sure, but the thing is, you're not applying to a specific major. When you submit your application, they don't ask what you want to major in. They just ask what your preference is, and then they also include in the application that something along the lines of, we get that your preferences may change a lot during your first year. So what you select is not binding or anything, and you're not applying to a specific major. You're just applying to the school in general.
All right, thanks. And I'd also like to know whether I could make a double major in economics and political science.
You can. I think you can. I think I have a friend who I think is double majoring in exactly that.
Yeah, you can double major in anything that you want to double major in. It might just take you longer to graduate, but that's it.
All right, thanks.
Cool. I remember getting a question from Lily about not meeting one of the requirements. I don't know, Lily, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
It's because, like, let's say I'm on the website and then under the major I want to apply for, it tells me that I need, like, let's say a AP calculus BC, but I don't have that, or like I can't take it. Should I still apply, or should I just not apply?
Like Noor was saying, you're not applying for a specific major, you're just applying to the school in general. I would always recommend that you apply. You're talking about MIT or a different school? Sorry, I need to clarify.
No, I'm talking about MIT, but like in general as well, like American universities. Like, let's say under, like, مثلا they want a specific score on the SAT, but I didn't meet that. Like, do I still apply? That's what I mean. Like, do I still apply even if I didn't reach it, or like they tell me like I have to reach these to apply?
My advice, and Jasmine, feel free to answer your own opinion, is I would always like email the admission office or a professor that you're going to be, you think you're going to major in that field, and tell them, this is my situation. I'm still really interested. What are the chances of me getting in? And they could tell you, unfortunately, it's very strict. We don't accept people who don't meet this criteria. Or they could say, it depends on the whole package. But I do understand that also applying is costly, because you have to submit an application fee for every university. And so it might not be worth it to apply if you don't think you're getting in. But if you can, I always think that there's no harm in applying and seeing what happens. I don't know, Noor, Jasmine, what are your thoughts?
If it's a required score, I'm not very sure, but if it's just an average score of people admitted, definitely don't take that. If your score is below that, definitely don't take that as a reason not to apply. I was 40 points below the average score on the SAT, and I still got in. So you definitely have a chance because they look at everything.
Farah.
I just had a couple questions. First, do most schools in these states, do they have a preference to international program students or IB students more than they do like people that go the national route? This is more of a question, I think, here in Lebanon.
And do you think that they prefer, Americans over internationals? Is that your question?
No, it's okay. I can clarify. So
okay.
in Lebanon, there's this thing where you can either do the Lebanese national program or the baccalaureate, and then you can also do the international program where you opt out of that. And you can only do the international program if you have a nationality that isn't Lebanese. Now, I don't know if they prefer that specifically. I'm not sure about that. Maybe your counselor, like Mr. Keith, could answer that.
In my experience, no. We've had students from both the IP program as well as the Lebanese program. So I would come to the conclusion they don't have a preference there. Hope that helps.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And also about demonstrated interest, especially I feel like it's very important for like a lot of universities in the States, but obviously because of COVID, I don't really know what the options are for. Like how would I go? Would I have to like attend more sessions? Or I don't know. Is that an important part of the application?
For extracurriculars, you're asking?
I'm talking about demonstrated interest in the school. Like usually they had
Farah, I don't know if you're still talking, but I think your voice cut. But I think that, demonstrated interest in the schools reflected in your answers in the essay, in general, if you attend an information session, you don't have to do everything to show you're interested in the school. There are some schools I got into and all I did was write an essay for them, and that's it. And did nothing else. No campus visits, no interview, and so they're not expecting you to, like, you know, get a tattoo of the university or something. Are they la?
Uthayla.
Uthayla, sorry.
No problem. So Farah said that is our English test necessary if she has an American passport? So what I understand that it's not. So I don't have to complete the SAT and TOEFL to go into MIT, right?
For the SAT, it doesn't matter if you have the American nationality or not. It's better if you do it. But for the TOEFL, if you do have the American nationality, then you don't need to do it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mahmoud?
Yeah, you guys mentioned that the scholarships depend on how much we're able to pay. So if we're not able to pay for housing, for example, would that cost also be covered by MIT, or does that scholarship thing apply only to tuition?
I think just to clarify, it's financial aid and not a scholarship, because those are two different things. But financial aid will cover you if you cannot afford to pay for housing or personal expenses or books. They take all of that into consideration.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions?
If there are no further questions, ladies, may I just thank you. We really appreciate your time and your slick presentation, Ms. Noor. Thank you very much. And all three ladies, thank you for your time. It's really been an insight in how we can apply to MIT and the States in general, and what we should sharpen up with and what should pay attention to. So thank you very much for all the tips and the hints. We really appreciate it. And I'm talking on, I'm sure, on all the students' behalf. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
And just remember to fill this out if you were looking for more mentorship. Oh, thanks to Vanessa for drawing all over the presentation. ضحكتينا صراحة. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. That's everybody.
Good. That was good. There we go.
2 down.
2 down. We have one more on the 14th now, which is good.
Okay,
And then
that's all.